Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. How do you like my little jingle there? That was pretty good. I thought that was pretty good. I like it. I like it a lot. Welcome to the holiday Christmas special thing. We're going to probably keep it a little short. I'm going to pretend that it's to respect your holiday plans, and in reality, I am so freaking tired. I'm just so tired. But I know a lot of people are very busy, and numbers will probably be a little bit lower because a lot of people can't be listening around this time. So, you got to save the good stuff for when people are going to be around. You know what I'm saying? But it is a bit of a tradition. I don't skip on Christmas or anything else. So first and foremost, I hope you all have a fantastic Christmas. I know not all of you celebrate, and some of you, it's maybe not the best time of year. I get that. So hopefully we can have a little fun hanging out today, if nothing else. But please be safe and enjoy the time with family, whatever it is you're doing. I said what I was going to do this week probably is skip PFF, and that's not entirely true. I'm going to use PFF, but I'm going to use it to highlight, to accentuate the positives. Now, again, it feels like I'm going heavy down the whole bootlicker thing, but again, the bottom line is the team is playing unbelievably well. And so, look, when things are bad, I'm going to say they're bad. When things are good, I'm going to say they're good. Now, were there bad things in this game? There were. But this team put on a performance that is, again, we've seen some great performances, no doubt about it. I'm not even going to pretend this is the greatest. But if we were to put a pile of them together, this is on the list, all right? And so I just made a decision that we're not going to spend time being negative. Now, you can probably deduce, if we don't talk about somebody, that it's because they didn't have a great day, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was bad. So I've got that little out there. We're just going to highlight the things that were incredibly good. So that's what we're going to do. Now, when I peeked at PFF during the game, especially the offense, it was really bad. And I was kind of getting upset. Because, again, it's just we're tearing everybody up, and it's like all 60s and everything. I was like, I'm so sick of you freaking people, but it's looking a little better. It's It's about half the team. If you round up, let's say 69 or higher, that group, by the way, 69 or higher, would include, oh, wow, I didn't even, I forgot about this guy. It would include Jordan Love, Andre Dillard, Elton Jenkins, Tucker Kraft, Chris Brooks, Jaden Reed, Zach Tom, Malik Willis, Emmanuel Wilson, and Josh Jacobs. So we will talk about some, not all of those guys, because again, some of them are 67, 8, 9-ish, and it's not really worth gushing over necessarily. But of the people that absolutely need to be talked about, first of all, when we look at some of the receiving stuff, usually you talk about wide receivers and stuff. The top graded receiver was Josh Jacobs. 86 receiving grade. He just had 4 targets, 4 receptions, but really he only ran 10 routes. So on his 10 routes, so 40%, he was targeted 4 times, caught all 4, 38 yards. He had 3.8 yards per route run, which is pretty fantastic. His average depth of target, we kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday, was minus 2.8 yards. So the fact that he had 38, take 38 divided by 4 and recognize that, but he's starting at -3 almost. Pretty impressive. And then on top of that, he had 4 missed tackles forced. So that's 1 per reception. That's quite high. We haven't even got to the rushing yet. Tucker Kraft was the next highest graded. Fantastic game for him. Even on days where he does pretty well for us, he doesn't generally grade out super well. I know Packer fans are very happy with Tucker Kraft this year. If you were to go just based off of PFF, I guess he's got a 70 receiving grade, but it actually has been more consistent recently. So we can talk about that in just a second. But first and foremost, had one of his better days, his third best game of the season from a receiving grade standpoint. 4 targets, 3 receptions. We already went over that, 21 yards per reception. That was on just 19 routes run. 3.32 yards per route run. Again, anything over 2, I'm pretty happy with. You get over 3, and that's a real good day. 3.32 yards per route run, 116.7 passer rating when targeted. Speaking of Jaden Reed, exact same thing, 116.7 passer rating when targeted. He had a 74 receiving grade, 73 overall. Almost identical to Tucker. 4 targets, 3 receptions, 76 yards, which is a little bit more, but he had a couple more routes run, 24. He had the only, that's not true. He had 1 contested catch opportunity, and he caught it, so 100% contested catch rate. But real quick with Tucker, I think the biggest thing with Tucker is that he's raised the floor, which is one of the things I've said, even with guys like Edger and Cooper. Sometimes you're a little bit young, and it's like great game, terrible game, good game, terrible game, great game. And it's like, if we could just make the terribles okay, then you got like average, elite, average, great, average, good, average, you know what I mean? Like that's significantly better than when your low is like in the 40s. So he was 50, 70, 40, 50, 80, 40, 50, 80, 50, 40, and so that was his first 11 weeks. And so it's like bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. So it's 2 bad games, good game, 2 bad games, good game was pretty much the pattern he was on. And by bad, I mean around 50, and by good, I mean basically elite. Kind of cutting him short a little bit. But since that time, since week 12, so around the bye week, we'll skip the Chicago game, I suppose. But outside of that, 65, 91, 66, 71, 79. So he's had 3 good games out of 5, and by good, it's 170, 180, and 190, which is fantastic. And then he has 2 games that are at 65. So he is more consistent with the good. Instead of 1 and 3 games, it's 3 and 5 games. That's a significantly higher rate. And his floor went from high 40s to mid 60s. So very, very good game for Tucker. And, as far as a team getting hot at the right time, he's on that path. He's one of those dudes that's, again, it's either getting better, getting more consistent, whatever it is. Jaden, we all know, disappeared in that game against Detroit. What happened to Jaden Reed? Why didn't you scheme Jaden Reed? Whatever. He had a bad day that week. I kind of mentioned he started off hot and faded. Let me just run through his, again, almost everybody right around the bye week. He was actually a little earlier than the bye week. Through week 8, it was 90, 60, 60, 70, 70, 60, 40, 50. And so at that point, you look at it and go, he had a 90, and then it faded, and then he had 2 good games, and then he's been bad ever since. So it's kind of tough, you know what I mean? Since then, this is starting week 9 against Detroit, the first time we played them. It's 70, 70, 60, 70, 40, 70, 70. So in 7 games, 5 of them were in the 70s, mid-70s. That is phenomenal. And then of his 2 games where he didn't have that, one of them was above average at a 64, and then he had the one just really uncharacteristically bad day. I think they pressed the living crap out of Jaden Reed, and he just didn't respond very well. Whatever, it happens. If you're going to give me consistent 70s like every single week, now the stats have not been phenomenal, but again, you've got PFF watching him and going, no, he's doing a good job. If he runs a route and breaks a guy's ankles and Jordan throws to somebody else, maybe a deeper throw or whatever the case may be, that's not Jaden's fault. Might not be anybody's fault for that matter. I don't know. But overall, they've been pretty happy with Jaden Reed recently. Then we get to the rushing. All 3 running backs graded out quite well. The lowest was Chris Brooks. He had a 73 overall, 69 run grade. We'll call it a 70. But he had his 3.8 yards per attempt, which was the lowest. But he had 4 yards after contact per attempt. That was higher than anybody else. Think about that. 3.8 yards per attempt, 4 of them were after contact, which is, he was met slightly before the line of scrimmage every play on average. And he managed to get 4 yards. So he's hit at the line of scrimmage and manages to get 4 yards. That's fantastic. He also had 4 missed tackles, which, if you think about it, that's extremely impressive. Number one, because he only had 6 attempts. He was tied for the most missed tackles with Josh Jacobs. He had 4 in just 6 attempts. And think about how much harder it is when you're being hit at or behind the line of scrimmage, as opposed to making a guy miss in the open field. We're talking congested area. You either run through a guy's face, you get around a guy. It's a lot harder to do in those situations. So that was, according to PFF, our worst running back. Then Emmanuel Wilson, kind of interesting because, again, Josh Jacobs ran, I think it was 10 times in the first quarter. He ended up 13 carries. So they really took him out of the rotation after the first quarter. But Emmanuel Wilson had 11 attempts, so almost the same number of carries. 11 attempts, 52 yards, 4.7 yards per attempt and a touchdown. They gave him an 81 grade, 82 rushing grade. He had 2.27 yards after contact and 2 missed tackles forced. Josh Jacobs was the highest graded runner, 90.4 overall, 84 rushing grade. He had 69 yards on 13 attempts, 5.3 yards per attempt, 3.54 yards after contact. Again, very impressive because 5.3 yards, but he's only getting about 2 yards before contact. So the amount that he's getting us above and beyond expectation is fantastic. He also had 4 missed tackles forced. He was a force in this game. Blocking, we're just going to highlight Zach Tom. That's what we're going to do today. 80 pass blocking grade, 72 run blocking grade. The freaking guy does not miss, man. I got to look at this. He has had 1, 2, 3. He's only had 4 games. Think about this. Packers offensive lineman. That's the context here. Packers offensive lineman has had 4 games where he didn't grade at a 70 or higher in run blocking. 4 out of what, 15? So 11 games out of 15, he's had a 70 or higher run blocking grade. That's crazy. And then as far as his pass blocking is concerned, 2 of his games were high 60s. So, there were 2 games where he didn't really grade in the 70s. Technically 4. One was a 69.8. The other one's a 68.3. But he had a 65 pass blocking grade against Seattle. His only quote-unquote bad pass blocking grade was at Week 5 against L.A. 53.4 pass blocking grade. That was it. Otherwise, he's been great all year. It was also one of his bad run blocking days, so he got them both out of the way in that one game. So let's see. If we assume that game's fine, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 days. 11 games where you would be content, at least content, with both run blocking and pass blocking. He currently has an 87 overall grade, 89.6 run blocking grade. I got to look this up. It's so stupid. I can't get over that. Like, I can't wrap my head around it. It's a lot like how good the Packers are, and I'm just like, I don't know. I can't fathom it so much. He is 3rd in run blocking, behind Penei Sewell and Jordan Mailata. And I've already told you a better comparison than just about anybody else would be Penei Sewell. The problem is Zach Tom is a significantly better pass blocker than Penei Sewell. They're very similar when it comes to run blocking. But Zach Tom's just a better pass blocker. Penei Sewell has a 74 pass blocking grade. Zach Tom has an 82 pass blocking grade. And of course, they give Penei Sewell a higher grade because for them, run blocking is the most important thing. They have the dumbest system in the world. The only other guy that might be somewhat similar as far as the grade would be Teron Armstead in Miami. But Armstead is a slightly lower run blocker, but decently better pass blocker than Zach Tom. So it's just, I just absolutely cannot believe we have the 3rd best run blocking tackle in football, on top of having 2 top 20 pass blocking tackles. Ridiculous. Why don't we take a break? We'll come back, look at defense, and then we'll probably just wrap this bad boy up. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So PFF made this real easy for me. There's no kind of gray area here. We have a 70.3 and then a big drop off after that, so I don't need to worry about it. But the guys we'll be talking about today, well, actually, that's not true. We can talk about other guys in different categories. But overall, Xavier McKinney, 70.3 grade. Carrington Valentine, again, I just said it was a one-time thing. Carrington Valentine, he's never done it before. He did it again. Not as good, but 77.5. For the record, his highest graded game up to this point was a 67. He goes on to have a 90, and I'm like, okay, that's a one-off, not going to happen again. Then a 77. I understand Jeff Hafley is a freaking wizard. I get it. But way to make me look like a complete idiot. He had one game last year that was an 84.9. That's it. That's it. He had a 70.0 against Detroit, but not as high as these games that he's had. So these are two, aside from one game last year, those are his two best games back to back. Carrington Valentine. So I don't know, man. Just I guess stop being a doubter. If somebody does something for the first time ever, completely out of nowhere, just assume that that's going to happen forever. Stop not assuming that, I guess, is the lesson here. Also, by the way, hilariously, guess who got graded higher? Eric Stokes did, who also had his second good day in a row. His highest game actually, he's been pretty good for about 4 weeks. But his highest game prior to this was a 69.7, which was week 13 against Miami. Then he had a 60 grade against Detroit, which is not terrible when you take it in conjunction with the other games surrounding it. You got a 70, 60, 78, 81. That's Eric Stokes. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. And it's less unusual with Stokes because we've seen, I mean, first of all, he's been here for 4 years, so he's had more opportunities to have good games. But again, he had a good rookie year and all that stuff, so it's not that shocking. He had a 79, 72, 76, 77, 71, 88. That was his rookie year. He was laying it on that year. You want to hear something, folks? Guess where, it's just 2 weeks. Guess where Eric Stokes and Carrington Valentine rank? Stokes is 5th, Carrington Valentine is 2nd. And if we go based on coverage grade, Carrington Valentine is 2nd with a 90.3 grade. Stokes is 4th with an 86.4. And I know, well, it's ridiculous. It's a 2-week thing or whatever. Okay, I will grant you that. However, it's not that ridiculous when you take two guys that never have good games. It's hard to find them. It's going to be very hard to find any time Carrington Valentine has been in the top 2 in any 1 week, much less 2 weeks in a row. In other words, you can't be bad for 2 weeks. You have to actually be quite good for 2 weeks. And to have Valentine and Stokes both have, for the first time ever in their careers, back-to-back very good games, look, the defense has changed. It has evolved. It has improved. And I'm still not expecting this to continue necessarily. But look, it's either a really, really unlikely coincidence, like very, very low probability coincidence. I mean, you take something that happens once every 10 games, let's say for each guy. Once every 10 games. So there's a 10% chance that Carrington Valentine is going to have a good game. What are the odds that Carrington Valentine has a good game 2 weeks in a row? Well, it's a 10% chance times 10%. It's a 1% chance. So there is, assuming you have a guy like Carrington, let's just say once every 10 games he has a really good game. What are the odds that he has 2 good games back to back? It's 1%, which means in 100 weeks, once he might have something like that. Now, if you have 2 guys that are both 10%ers, you're talking about 1% for Valentine and 1% for Stokes. But what are the odds that both guys have the same situation on the same 2 weeks? That is 0.01 times 0.01, which is 0.0001, or 0.01%. So I say that not for the sake of just nerding out. I say that for the sake of getting you to understand why I find it to be somewhat relevant. As much as, it's 2 weeks, it doesn't matter. Because the improbability to me, it is possible that it's just a complete fluke. You could just, it's a bad quarterback, bad this, bad that, as though these guys haven't played a billion bad quarterbacks and played poorly in those games, which they have. They've played bad quarterbacks, bad wide receivers, bad tight ends, bad coaches, whatever. You got bad weather conditions where wide receivers are slipping and dropping balls. They still grade out poorly. I'm not going to pretend that Eric Stokes has played like Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs every week of his career until the last 2 weeks, and all of a sudden, oh my goodness. So, again, it's possible that it's a complete fluke. But when you look at it from a mathematical standpoint, the odds that both players, and maybe it's not 1 in 10, although I would say that's actually pretty fair. Again, it gets to one of those things where it's like the probability that these guys just became good corners overnight, whether the defense or Jeff Hafley or any of these guys are wizards to begin with, which, by the way, remember, Hafley cornerback guy, and we've got some really talented DB guys in the building. That was kind of one of the big appeals to them is, oh man, we got these corner guys, we got these DB coaches all over the place. The odds that these guys just became really good corners is low. But is it as low as both of these guys having really good games 2 weeks in a row in the same 2 weeks? I don't know. We're talking very low probability in both cases. Anyways, Carrington Valentine with a 77.5, Devontae Wyatt, my dude, 77.7. Wyatt, by the way, listen. I'm telling. Look, this defense struggled, and a lot of guys struggled. Defensive line across the board. Something has absolutely clicked. Not that we didn't know that, because they went from I don't know, again, turnover dependent, but there's some serious issues, to one of the scariest defenses I've seen the Packers have in a long time. Like, they're just giving nobody points, literally in the case of this last game. So it shouldn't be that surprising. But Devontae Wyatt, as much as I've always loved Devontae Wyatt and his potential and everything else, this is year 3 for Wyatt. As a rookie, just running through, it was just real quick. Bad, bad, good, bad, bad, good, bad, 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 good, good, bad, bad, good. Okay? You've got some decent ones mixed in there. Year 2, good, bad, 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 bad. I'm heavily rounding, 70 or higher or below 70, okay? Good, bad, 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 good, bad, 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 good, bad, bad, good, bad, 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 bad. Okay? And then this year, it was 50, 50, 70, 40, 50, 60, 40, 50, 60. I love Wyatt. He's barely hanging on to the 10%, like whatever. Pass rush is kind of there. I don't know, man. He's kind of having a down year for him, whatever. He had one good game. It was against Tennessee, 78.7 grade. The last 3 weeks, 74, 72, 78. 3 good games in a row. So again, I'm not going to run the math, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. So 1 in 9, so roughly 1 in 10. A guy that gets good games once every 9 games, and looking at it, maybe once every 5 if you look at his other games. A guy that has good games once every 5 games had 3 good games in a row. 2 of those games were run defense. He never has good run defense. I mean, that's not literally never, but never. Okay, he's bad at it. I've resigned myself to that. He had a 69 run defense grade against Detroit and a 72 against New Orleans. That doesn't happen. And then as far as his pass rush, he has got, 20, 30, 40, 46, 49. Out of 49 attempts, he's got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pressures and 2 sacks in 49 attempts over the last 3 weeks. It's even better over the last 2, where he has 36 attempts. He has 8 pressures on 36 attempts, 2 sacks. 8 pressures, 2 sacks on just 36 attempts. Wyatt's going crazy. By the way, prior to the last 2 weeks, he had 3 sacks on the season. He has 2 the last 2 weeks and 3 good games in a row. First-round pick Eric Stokes starting to act like a first-round pick. Again, do I believe it? I can't. I can't get there. But I'm happy to see a first-round pick playing like a first-round pick. Devontae Wyatt, year 3, suddenly playing like a first-round pick, like a pretty good one. Feeling real good about that. Anyways, fifth best was Eric Stokes, like we talked about, 81 overall, 82 coverage. Then number 4, shouldn't be super surprising, Mr. Edgerrin Cooper. I've mentioned that Edgerrin has been very up and down. He was 86 and then 57, 65, 41, 86, 81, 34, 74, 64, 54. Then he got injured. He's come back 94 and 81 in his 2 weeks back from injury. So he has gone out of his mind. Now, he had 2 weeks before, weeks 5 and 6. He had 2 really good games, and his next week was a 34. Is it impossible that he has a bad week against Minnesota? Absolutely not. In fact, the last time he played Minnesota, he had a 41 PFF grade. So we will have to see how it goes. But this dude is playing out of his mind. I wonder if we go back over the last 2 weeks, how many Packers are in the top of their positions. I know Edgerrin's got to be probably number 1, if not, certainly top 3. But Wyatt and a bunch of other guys are probably there as well. Just playing out of their minds lately. Then at number 3, you got Zane Anderson. Remember, PFF had said yesterday Zane, I think, was the highest graded. Of course, that changes as time goes on. He's the 3rd highest graded now. But his first time, that's not his first, well, it is his first start. But as far as snaps goes, he played 53 snaps against Detroit. And even that wasn't terrible. 66 PFF grades, 71 run defense, 79 tackling, 61 coverage. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. How many? Where are? Oh, here. Oh, because I was like, I can't find the coverage stats because he hasn't been targeted. In his 111 snaps, 67 of them in coverage, he's been targeted once. So, yeah, that game against Detroit, 0 targets, 0 receptions. So you can't be mad at him for that. But no, I mean, he's been, I don't know, man. Maybe he's good. Maybe he's good. I mean, this is one of those things I would look at where I used to just say, look, it was a fluky thing. He's not going to be a good football player, and it's stupid, so don't worry about it. These days, I don't know anymore. I don't know. Then, because I don't know what world we're living in, Brenton Cox. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Brenton Cox is a good football player. I was, fingers crossed because, he had a real good offseason, and then we just didn't see him because we had too many guys. So I was like, well, maybe, 3-4, maybe, or 4-3. It just kind of feels like it would suit him a little bit. I think he can. Sure enough, shot out of a cannon. He had his best game of his career, 89 PFF grade, 74 run defense, 72 tackling, and a 90 pass rush grade. This man had 5 pressures and a sack on just 17 attempts. To be clear, you're looking for 2. About 2 pressures. I mean, of course, you want as many as possible, but 2 pressures I'm very happy with that. He had 5 and a sack. Right now, he has 13 pressures and 4 sacks on just 80 attempts. That's stupid. That's just stupid. I mean, if you're looking at 10%, you'd be looking at more around 130 pass rush attempts. He's at 80. And, again, primarily the last 2 weeks. So he started week 11. He did have a good game week 12 against San Francisco as far as his run defense goes. But it was 50, 80, 60, 50 were his first 4 games. And as far as his pressures, it was 2-1, 2-0. So 2 pressures, 1 pressure, 2 pressures, 0 pressures. The past 2 weeks, his grades have been 70 and 89, and his pressures have been 3 and 5, and he had sacks in both games. So, I mean, they are doing some stuff, man. I don't know. And I understand, against tougher competition, it's going to be more difficult to maintain these things. But it's friggin' wild, man. It's just crazy stuff. And then the highest graded, public enemy number 1, negative Packer fans' favorite target to hate on, Mr. Rashawn Gary. 91 PFF grade. It was his highest graded game of the season. 72 run defense, 72 tackling, 87 pass rush grade. He had 6 pressures on 18 attempts. That is tied for the most amount of pressures he's had in a game, and he just had 18 attempts. Although last time it was 6, it was only 21 attempts. So sometimes the dude just goes off. How do you get 6 pressures on just 18 attempts? That's 33%. That's crazy. Once every 3 times, dude lines up, he's getting to the quarterback. That is wild. He is now up to 42 pressures. Keep in mind, Rashawn Gary was sub 10% not that long ago. I mean, it was, I guess I had said he turned, by the way, I did tell you he turned the corner, probably around week 7. But I mean, you're looking at his pressures were 3-0-3-0-0-3 through the first 6 weeks. So he had 9 pressures. I'm not even going to do the math here, but clearly more than 9 attempts. 26, 33, 22, 33, 24, 26. When you're talking, 30, 60, 90, roughly 150 attempts? The guy had 9 pressures. So he was nowhere near. Then he goes 6 on 21, 24, 3 pressures, 14, 2 pressures, 31, 5 pressures, 17, 3 pressures, 35, 4 pressures, 25, 2 pressures, 23, 2 pressures, 18, 6 pressures. So he went from, averaging 1 to 2 a game to 6, 3, 2, 5, 3, 4, 2, 2, 6. And he went from, roughly 9 pressures on 150 attempts to 42 pressures on 370. So he's up to 11.4%, which isn't shockingly high for a guy like Rashawn, but when you start as low as you do, to fly past that 10% like he has, very, very happy with the guy that we've got here. And the run defense has been quite good from him. He has not been, he's not a bad run defender, but it's not really what you necessarily loved about him. But he's got a 74 run defense grade right now, and it's been better down the stretch. I mean, the last 4 games, 67, 67, 69, 72. I mean, we're not talking elite run defense, but we're talking well above average, certainly adequate. So, yeah, very, very happy with the Rashawn situation right now. As far as run defense, Rashawn Gary, 72, Devontae Wyatt, 72, Keyshawn Nixon with a 73, Brenton Cox with a 74, Edgerrin Cooper, 86. Pass rush grades, we've got Colby Wooden, 69, Edgerrin Cooper, 70, Lucas Van Ness, 74, Keyshawn Nixon, 81, Rashawn Gary, 87, and Brenton Cox with a 90. Coverage grades, Carrington Valentine, 78, Eric Stokes, 82, Zane Anderson, 82. Pressures, 30 pressures and 3 sacks in this game. Pretty high number. As far as the guys that did a very good job, or at least adequate, Eric Wilson had just 2 attempts and had 1 pressure, so 50%. That's obviously pretty fantastic. Keyshawn Nixon, 1 attempt, 1 pressure. TJ Slayton had a pressure on just 9 attempts. They're obviously just not putting him out there very often, which I appreciate. What else we got here? Kenny, who's also, I mean, his grade was not as elite, but as far as his statistics, and I mean, the grades have been quite good also since about week 13. The pressure stats have been very consistent. So he had 3 games in a row with 0 pressures. Since then, it was 2-2-1-5-2. And so the last 2 weeks, he had 5 pressures on 25 attempts, which is phenomenal, and then 2 pressures on 12 attempts, which is also phenomenal. So, 7 pressures on 37 attempts? He's still got a long way to go to get to 10% on the season. Probably won't get there, but dude has turned a corner since week 13. Again, the grade wasn't as high, but it wasn't bad, and the pass rush was there, and to have 5 games of at least he's not bad, I'll accept that, with 3 of them being very good. Also had Kingsley Enagbare with 2 pressures on 16 attempts. Carl Brooks had 3 pressures on 22 attempts. Devontae Wyatt, as I said, 3 pressures and a sack on just 14 attempts. Lucas Van Ness, 4 pressures on just 12 attempts. What an absolute beastie human being. Brenton Cox, 5 pressures and a sack on 17 attempts. Rashawn Gary, 6 pressures on 18 attempts. These guys are running wild, man. They're just running wild. Colby Wooden with a batted pass. The stop leaders, Devontae Wyatt and Edgerrin Cooper with 4 stops apiece. Forced fumbles going to Carrington Valentine and Keyshawn Nixon. And then we'll just highlight some NFL passer ratings when targeted. Edgerrin Cooper just a 79. Xavier McKinney, 79. Tyron Hopper, 64.6. Eric Stokes, 42.4. Corey Ballantyne with a 39.6. And Zane Anderson, I almost forgot to mention him because he's down here with everybody else in the zeros, literally a 0. 0 passer rating when targeted. But anyways, folks, I'm going to leave it at that. You all know, well, we'll do special teams. Oladapo with a 69, special teams grade. Eric Wilson with a 70. Chris Brooks with a 73. Edgerrin Cooper with an 89 because of course. Guys, a show off even on special teams, man. Freaking calm down, will you? Teacher's pet over here, am I right? Of course, we got to give love to Brandon McManus, 75 grade. I don't know what a brother's got to do to get like a 90 as a kicker. But, yeah, made all 4 of his extra points, both of his kicks. He does have an 81 overall. I've noticed with kickers, a lot of it is cumulative. So it'll just be like 69, 70, 71, 70. It's just across the board. But it adds up to like an 85 for these guys. He is having his best season ever, by the way. Brandon McManus is a good kicker, but he ain't this good. Like this is like it's so weird because I sit here and I'm like, oh, with McManus, you don't even have to worry about stuff. It's like, yeah, but that's never been true before. So I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop or something. Like I don't know what's going on. 2021. I mean, remember he was with Denver for a long time. Good kicker for Denver. 2021 was his best year as far as his grades go. 78.1. He's had 5 seasons with 100% extra points, which is this year is one of them. And then field goal percentage, his best year was 2015. He had an 88.9 field goal percentage. This year it's a 94.1. 94 is stupid. Remember, with all the kickers we had, granted they weren't very good, we were just hoping that we can get them up into like the 70s. Can we get a 70%er around here? And like stop missing extra points. Like if we can get 70% and stop missing extra points, I guess I'll get over it. 94%. He's missed 1 field goal. 27 of 27 on extra points. 16 of 17 on field goals. Now it's not that many, so you would expect he's going to miss some more. That percentage is going to go down, but I mean it's just he has been the most steady, ridiculous human being. And at 33 years old, I mean, he may as well be a rookie as far as kickers go. He can kick till he's 70. I don't give a crap. It'll be fine. But anyways, I'm out of here, folks. You guys have a good rest of your day. And I will talk to you probably tonight. I don't know. Tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye.